Hey everyone, welcome back to In Another Thing with me, your host Shalako. Sorry I took a little break for the holidays, but I'm back and just in time because it's one of my favorite times of the year. It's award season. So before I get into this, I want to give a little context about who I am in case you may have forgotten. I've been working in the film and television industry and telling stories for nearly 30 years now. I've worked on projects with no money, projects with a little bit of money, and some projects with enough money to get me in trouble. So I've also been a judge on films for Oscar qualifying film festivals. I've watched some really special films, and I've also watched great work get overlooked without explanation. So when I talk about award season, I'm not coming from a place of frustration. I'm coming from experience. Because the truth is, 2025 has been one of the most creatively exciting years I've seen in a long time. Not because every film is perfect, but because the range, the ambition, and the confidence in the work feels real again. So before the nominations come out, before the headlines and the debates and all the online chatter and craziness, which we're actually already dealing with, I want to talk about what this year already says about where film is right now. Critic Choice Awards were recently, and it was already a heavily debated night. I'm not going to get into all of that noise just yet, but we will talk about it. I mean, if I'm being honest, though, I do like this part of it because I like the debate. What stood out to me about 2025 isn't one dominant film. It's the fact that multiple kinds of movies are being talked about at the same time. That doesn't happen every year, but none of that changes the fact that 2025 already gave us films that trusted audiences to meet them halfway. And that's always a good sign. But today, I'm going to focus on these four films, which I believe will be the front runners this Oscar season. So let's start with Hamnet, directed by Chloe Zhao. I've always been a fan of Chloe's. Chloe understands restraint at a very high level, and you can really see this with Hamnet. She's always been a director to me who trusts silence. She understands landscape, space, and emotional breathing room. With Hamnet, though, she's really patient, and to me, that's a patient that really matters because it's a story about grief, loss, and memory, and Chloe doesn't rush anything. She lets the moments sit, she lets the faces do the work, she lets absence speak just as loudly as the presence. That really takes a lot of confidence. She's not trying to impress you with technique, though. She's a director who knows that sometimes the most powerful move is knowing when not to push. She's a seasoned filmmaker, and that's seasoned filmmaking. And if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you grab some tissues and you have them ready. You will cry. So, next, let's look at Sinners, directed by Ryan Coogler. Now, Sinners, this is Ryan Coogler operating with clarity. What Coogler does well and has always done well is balance scale with intimacy. Even when the themes are big, the filmmaking stays grounded in character and in emotion. With Sinners, you can feel a director who isn't afraid of tension. He lets scenes breathe, but he also knows when to apply pressure. Nothing really here feels accidental. Nothing is really reckless. And the scene, the I lied to you scene alone is like is near flawless with the creativity and the emotion. And I remember when I watched it in the IMAX, like I was just saying, Ryan really put his foot on that, which is an old school expression. People know what I'm talking about. Ryan is a filmmaker who understands rhythm. He understands when to lean in, when to pull back, and when to let the audience sit with the discomfort. He's not someone chasing awards. I don't think this is an award chasing film, but he is someone who's confident in his voice. So the next film is One Battle After Another, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. One Battle After Another feels exactly like what you expect from a Paul Thomas Anderson movie at this stage of his career. He's a filmmaker who understands structure, he understands pacing, tone, and of course, he understands performance. PTA doesn't really overdirect, he builds a world and he trusts the actors to live in it. There's a confidence that comes from experience, of course, knowing when a scene is said enough and knowing when to let it in. This film doesn't rush you. Yes, it can be considered controversial, but it respects the audience's intelligence and allows them to make their own decisions. It's something that I wish we saw a little bit more often, if I'm being honest. And then there's Marty Supreme, directed by Josh Safdie. This one really stands out to me because of how controlled it is. Of course, the acting from Timothy Chalamet, but people associate the Safdies with intensity, but here Josh shows a lot of restraint. The tension is still there, but is measured. Josh Safdie is a director who understands performance. He knows how to shape the moment without really announcing it. Marty Supreme feels like the type of work from a filmmaker who knows exactly what film he's making. He's not really trying to over explain it. Like, after watching the film, though, I did wonder where that massive budget went, but it really didn't take away from the movie itself. You know, taste is something that the awards don't always know how to measure, though. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Marty Supreme as a film, not just for the actor. So at the end of the day, award season is just one chapter in a much longer story. The real measure of a great film year is what sticks with us, what influences the work that comes next, and what keeps the conversation alive. And right now, 2025 feels like a year that's going to last, like people are going to look back on it. If you enjoyed, though, this episode, make sure you're subscribed to And Another Thing wherever you listen to your podcasts, Apple or Spotify. You can also watch the full video version on YouTube. You can follow along for social clips, conversations, and a follow-up episode once the nominations drop. I'm your host, Shalako. I appreciate you all. Thank you for watching. And as always, I'll catch you next time.